Imagine opening your energy bill. You scan down the page, past the account number, past the breakdown, all the way to the bottom where the total lives, and you see a zero. Not a credit, not a glitch, not a promotional month, a zero every single month, every January, every August, every February when the rest of the country is watching their heat bill climb past $200 a week. That is not a fantasy. That is just Tuesday for an Amish family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking solar panels, wind turbines, some off-grid tech setup that costs $80,000 and requires a PhD to maintain. No, none of that. What they are doing is older than the United States itself, simpler than anything you have seen advertised, and so effective that several state governments have written building codes, quietly, carefully, specifically designed to stop you from doing it. Stay with me, because the last technique I am going to share with you today is something I have genuinely never seen documented in a single modern construction guide. Not one. And once I understood why it was buried, everything I thought I knew about the energy industry rearranged itself. The real cost of modern living. Here is the number that should make you furious. The average American household spends $2,400 every single year on energy. Every year. That is $24,000 over a decade. $120,000 over 50 years. Gone. Sent straight to utility companies that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying politicians to make sure the meter never stops running. And here is the question I want you to sit with, because it is going to follow you through everything we are about to cover. What if the single most effective home energy system ever designed was already perfected 300 years ago? What if it is not lost? What if it has simply been made inconvenient for you to find? Because someone else's entire business model depends on you staying ignorant of it. The Amish did not set out to be energy revolutionaries. They set out to survive. And in surviving, generation after generation, without a grid, without a utility account, without a monthly bill, they preserved a system that works so well it borders on embarrassing. Embarrassing for everyone who told you there was no other way. The sun is your first architect. Before an Amish master builder picks up a single tool, before a foundation is poured, before a single board is cut, he does something that modern home builders have completely abandoned. He stands on the land. He watches the sky. From sunrise to sunset, he tracks exactly where the sun travels. And based on what he sees, he makes a decision that will determine the energy performance of that home for the next 200 years. Every Amish home in Holmes County, Ohio, every single one, is oriented with its longest wall facing within 10 degrees of true south. This is called passive solar orientation, and the physics of it are so straightforward that once you understand them, you will never look at a suburban neighborhood the same way again. In winter, the sun sits low on the horizon. A south-facing wall receives direct sunlight from the moment the sun rises to the moment it sets. Every hour of every short winter day, that wall is collecting free heat. In summer, when the sun climbs high overhead, that same wall sits almost entirely in shade. The house cools itself, not through technology, through geometry. Penn State Extension has spent decades studying traditional building orientation across Pennsylvania. Their data confirms what the Amish learned empirically over centuries. A properly oriented home reduces its heating demand by 30 to 40% before you add a single additional element to the system. 30 to 40% from simply which direction the house faces. Your house is probably facing the street, whatever direction the street runs, because the developer saved 20 minutes of planning, and you have been paying for that shortcut every winter since you moved in.
Windows that work like engines. Walk around an Amish home in Lancaster County
and you will notice something immediately. Something that is so obvious once you see it that you will wonder how modern architecture forgot it entirely. The south wall is lined with large, deep windows. Not decorative windows, not windows placed for curb appeal. Windows sized and positioned with the precision of solar collectors. The north wall has almost none. Maybe one small window per room placed high near the ceiling. Just enough for light, not enough for heat loss. The east and west walls have moderate, carefully measured glazing. This is not aesthetic preference. This is a calculated thermal engine built into the skin of the house. And then there are the sills. In a modern American home, a windowsill is roughly 3 inches wide. You might rest a coffee mug on it. In an Amish home, the south-facing windowsills are 12 to 16 inches wide enough to sit on. And that is not accidental. Those deep sills create what builders call a thermal buffer zone. Warm air from the glass rises, hits the sill, slows, and settles back into the room rather than being lost. The sill is doing what your 3-inch modern sill simply cannot. There is a 1920s Amish barn in Lancaster County that still uses this exact window design. Still, over 100 years later. No retrofits needed, no upgrade required. It has been quietly outperforming every modern insulated window system built in the same region. Not because it is more advanced, but because it was designed by someone who understood physics instead of someone who understood quarterly earnings. The house that breathes itself cool. I can already hear the objection. Fine, winter is handled. South walls, big windows, orientation, that is a heating solution. What about July in Ohio, when it is 94 degrees and the humidity makes it feel like the inside of someone's mouth? What about August? What about sleeping upstairs when heat rises and every modern house becomes a slow oven after midnight? The Amish have an answer for that too, and it does not use a single watt of electricity. It is called the stack effect, and the principle is almost insultingly simple once you hear it. Cool air is dense. It is heavy. It wants to sit low. Warm air is lighter. It rises. If you design a house with low intake openings on the shaded north side, where the coolest exterior air collects, protected from direct sun, and high exhaust openings near the roof on the south side, something remarkable happens. The warm air inside the house rises and escapes through the top, and as it leaves, it pulls the cool north air in through the bottom, continuously, automatically, without a fan, without a thermostat, without a power bill. I spent time with an Amish family in Lancaster County whose farmhouse was built in 1887. The husband walked me upstairs on a July afternoon when the outdoor temperature was pushing 90 degrees. He pointed at the thermometer. 68 degrees. I checked it twice. No air conditioning, no fans running. The house was simply breathing, exactly the way its builder intended it to breathe 136 years ago. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. In many states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and a growing list of others, modern residential building codes require mechanical ventilation systems, forced air. If you submit architectural plans for a new home that relies on natural cross-ventilation as its primary cooling method, you will be told to add mechanical systems anyway. The natural design is not forbidden. It is simply rendered irrelevant by law. You are required to pay for the mechanical system whether you use it or not. Cornell's Building Science Department has documented this regulatory pattern in detail. The academic language is careful and neutral. The practical effect on your monthly bill is not. Walls that store heat like water in a tank. I want to change the way you think about heat for a moment, because most of us think about heat the way we think about light, like it is just there or not there. You turn on a switch and there is light. You run the furnace and there is warmth. Turn it off and it is gone. But heat is not like light. Heat is a physical thing. It can be stored, held, released slowly, hours later, like water from a saturated sponge. Adobe, stone, brick, rammed earth, these materials have what builders call high thermal mass. They absorb heat slowly during the day and release it slowly at night. An 18-inch stone wall does not just keep heat out, it soaks it in all afternoon and radiates it back into the room all through the night, long after the fire has died, long after the sun has set, long after a modern home's furnace has kicked on for the 4th time in an hour. A standard modern wall, 2x4 framing, fiberglass insulation, has almost zero thermal mass. It is a decent thermal barrier, meaning it slows heat transfer, but it stores nothing. The moment outdoor temperatures drop, your furnace is the only thing standing between you and the cold. And your furnace runs all night, and every time it runs, someone else's meter turns. The builders of the American Southwest knew this. The early European settlers who built with stone knew this. The Amish preserved it. Modern construction abandoned it around 1950 in exchange for walls that are faster and cheaper to build, and that guarantee you will need a furnace, a thermostat, and a monthly payment for the rest of your life. The walls of an Amish home sit at roughly 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, stabilized by the thermal mass of the earth itself. That is the baseline the whole system builds on. Steady, dependable, free. The heater that runs on 2 logs a day. Now we reach the heating system. And I want to be honest with you. When I first heard about this, I thought the person explaining it was exaggerating. I thought they were romanticizing old technology, the way people sometimes do with things that are simple and old. I was wrong. Think about a standard wood stove. You load it with wood. It burns slowly, incompletely, all day. You feed it again in the afternoon, again in the evening. The heat rises fast, but it also escapes fast, up to the ceiling, out through the walls, into the night. Modern certified wood stoves run at 60 to 70% thermal efficiency, which sounds acceptable until you understand what a masonry heater does. A masonry heater, the kind found in Amish homes throughout Ohio, operates on the exact opposite principle. You burn hot, fast, and complete. 2 or 3 large pieces of wood, a fire that burns intensely for 1 to 2 hours at temperatures that can exceed 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it goes out. Done. The firebox and the surrounding mass of stone, brick, and clay, which can weigh between 3,000 and 5,000 pounds, has now absorbed an enormous quantity of heat, and it spends the next 18 to 24 hours releasing that heat slowly and evenly into the living space. The surface of the stove never gets dangerously hot, warm to the touch, like a heated stone on a cold morning. Children can lean against it, animals sleep beside it. There is no open flame, no risk of clothing catching, no frantic stoking at 2 in the morning because the fire went out and the house is dropping to 50 degrees. Auburn University's forestry and wood science programs have measured masonry heater efficiency at 80 to 90% thermal efficiency. 80 to 90, compared to 60 to 70 for the best modern certified wood stoves. The families I spoke with in Ohio burn 3 to 4 cords of wood per winter, wood they cut from their own land. The fuel cost is whatever their time is worth to them. The utility heating bill? 0. The average American heating bill? $1,400 a year, year after year after year. The Forgotten Floor, a 1903 discovery nobody talks about. Everything I've told you so far, the orientation, the windows, the stack effect, the thermal mass, the masonry heater. All of it is documented somewhere, if you dig deeply enough. If you read the right Penn State Extension papers, the right Auburn University forestry studies, the right Cornell building science journals, you can find traces of each piece. But what I'm about to tell you, I have genuinely never seen in a single modern construction guide. Not one YouTube video, not one homesteading book, not one passive solar design manual. I found it buried in a 1903 USDA agricultural survey of Amish and Mennonite settlements in eastern Ohio. A document so obscure, it has not been digitized, does not appear in standard academic searches, and is referenced only twice in the published literature I could locate. In the older Holmes County Amish settlements, the earthen or stone floor of the main living area was built over a network of clay channels. Pipes, roughly 4 to 6 inches in diameter, buried 6 to 8 inches below the surface. These channels ran from a south-facing inlet near the base of the exterior wall, where winter sunlight hits the ground and warms the soil, through the earth beneath the floor, and emerged inside the living space through small openings in the floor itself. During sunny winter days, cold exterior air entered through that south inlet. It moved slowly through the underground channels, and as it traveled, it absorbed heat from the earth. Because the earth at a depth of 6 to 8 inches maintains a stable temperature of roughly 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, regardless of what the air above it is doing, by the time that air emerged inside the house, it had been pre-warmed by 8 to 12 degrees. No pump, no fan, no electricity. No moving parts of any kind. Why you were never supposed to know this. Here is the question that kept me up at night after I first put all of this together. Why does this feel like forbidden knowledge? None of these techniques are patented. None of them require exotic or imported materials. None of them need a certification, a permit, a contractor with a specialty license. A family with basic carpentry skills, access to stone, and a south-facing piece of land could implement every single element of this system. Why did I find the most important piece of this system in a document from 1903 that has never been referenced in a modern guide? Why does every state that has growing communities of people interested in passive solar and natural building also have building codes that require you to install mechanical backup systems you may never use? The answer is not a conspiracy theory. It is simpler than that, and in some ways more disturbing. When knowledge becomes mainstream, the market responds. The moment passive solar, thermal mass construction, and ground tempering channels become something that 20% of new homes implement, a meaningful portion of residential energy demand disappears from the grid. Permanently. The utilities understand this. The building products industry understands it. The regulatory bodies that receive their lobbying dollars understand it. The outcome is not suppression. It is friction. It is the slow accumulation of code requirements, permit complications, contractor unfamiliarity, and cultural invisibility that makes the ancient way feel impractical, until you realize that the only thing making it impractical is the system built to keep you paying. If you've ever opened a heating bill in February and felt punished for simply wanting to be warm, that feeling was always justified. There was another way. The Amish didn't invent it. They just never forgot it. Which part hit you hardest? Drop it below. Your comments actually shape what comes next. Subscribe. What's coming next makes this look like the introduction.